Following video will be on the effects of forests on watersheds of South Africa. We will learn about three main topics. First, we will ask an expert from South Africa about how the amount of forests affect the amount of water downstream in a watershed.
How would you describe the relationship between watersheds and the forests of South Africa?
There's an inverse relationship between the amount of forests that surround the river and the volume of water in the river. The South African watershed is greatly affected by the amount of trees near its rivers.
What is the significance of this relationship?
The South African Constitution states that every person has the right to clean water. However, only around 51% of its citizens are currently provided with a basic amount of free drinking water on a monthly basis. The South African people rely heavily on their watershed and rivers to provide them with clean water. Too much forests can greatly lessen the amount of water South Africans have available to them, while less forests can increase erosion and cause flooding. It's a problematic situation. Another problem is the increase of invasive species that currently take up around 7% of the country's water.
What are some solutions to this problem?
Managing the amount of forests has a huge impact on the amount of water available to South African citizens. However, finding the perfect amount of forests can be difficult. Too much forests in the water in the watershed is greatly reduced. If too many trees are cut down, however, it can cause erosion and flooding. This represents a situation that would best be solved by scientific research and environmental study as to the amount of forests, followed by to the correct amount of forests to minimize erosion and flooding, followed by government regulation and enforcement of that.
Do you foresee any issues that would be a hindrance to this solution?
The act of regulating the exact amount of trees could be pretty difficult and expensive. In South Africa, there are more impoverished people that support themselves and their families from there are lots of poorer people that support their families through the forests and harvesting from the forests. It would be beneficial for the government to try to work with and educate these people so that the greatest amount of people can make money from the forests, yet flooding and erosion would be limited.
Now we will go to Elizabeth for information on how forests affect erosion and sedimentation of watersheds.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Williams, and I'm going to tell you about how the amount of forests upstream affects the amount of sediment downstream in the watershed. Forests are good at buffering erosion. When there's more forest, there's less erosion, which in turn causes less sediment and less muddy water downstream. First, forests are very good at preventing erosion. They help hold soil together. Forests prevent soil from washing out and washing down rivers and streams. A forest canopy breaks up the rain, which reduces the impact of heavy rainfall on the forest floor, causing less soil disturbance. Leaves and natural debris on the forest floor slow the rate of water runoff and trap soil washing away from nearby fields. Muddy water leads to less clean water sources and poor quality habitat for aquatic life, such as fish. Fish are a valuable resource as a means of food. Forests help keep topsoil in place. Without fertile topsoil, nothing will grow. Crops don't produce the amount of needed root coverage to hold soil in erosion-prone areas. This causes the soil to wash out into streams and rivers, and copious amounts will cause them to become muddy in heavy rains. Forests help naturally filter the water that runs through them. These filtering actions help increase the quality of water by taking out impurities and pollutants. There is a very high demand for clean water in South African countries, as clean water is not as plentiful as it is in other parts of the world. The need to preserve and reestablish more of these forests in South Africa is great, as the need for more clean drinking water sources is substantial, along with the need for sustainable land management from forests to farmlands. Next, we'll go to Jesse to learn how South Africa has dealt with the deforestation of their watersheds.
Hi, I'm Jesse Outland, and I'm going to talk to you on the reasons for deforestation of watersheds and on the ways the South African government has dealt with the problem. First, you cannot force people upstream to stop clearing land. In most cases in South Africa upstream, people are normally more rural and much more poorer than the urban areas downstream that benefit from the forested watersheds. Therefore, the people living upstream rely more on the land for their income. Selling timber and clearing land for agricultural use is the only way these people can survive and make ends meet. If they're going to live there, they have no alternatives unless the government steps in and helps them. It would be wrong for the government to step in and force a person to stop doing something as clearing forest and agriculture if it's the only way that person has to make a living. There is one way to stop people from clearing land around watersheds, and this is to give economical subsidies to people so that they will be able to live without clearing the forest around the watersheds. But in doing so, it is human nature that all people would just want more and more, so there could be a chance that people who take the subsidies will still maintain their practice just to make more money. So, if the government plans on giving subsidies to protect the land, it must also put in strong laws and regulations that support the subsidies so nobody tries to double dip. If a government believes strongly enough about the welfare of its watersheds and of its people, then it will install programs of this kind. South Africa does, in fact, have in place the South African Water Act, which puts a tax on land practices such as plantation farming and even car washes. This is good and reduces the amount of water used from its watersheds. But South Africa could do better. They could turn around and use the money earned from the South African Water Act to fund subsidies to local landowners to protect the land around their watersheds. They could also use this money to fund the law enforcement that will have to protect their natural resources, such as the watersheds and other wild lands. This would seriously help the state of the watersheds in South Africa. Now back to Elizabeth.
We appreciate you all for viewing this video, and if you would like to see more like these, please donate to PBS. Thank you from all here at the studio. Have a nice day.